In the realm of private equity, there's a unique kind of silence, not the hush of a library or a place of worship. It's the quiet that descends when someone realizes they've blundered in a deal. Across countless rooms, I've observed seasoned, tough men freeze at this revelation, as every strategic move they made over several months has been foiled by their adversaries. This silence isn't melodramatic. It carries no soundtrack. It is merely the audible reorganization of one's future without consent. I never imagined experiencing that silence from my wife. My name is Vance, and I will recount the events precisely as they unfolded, not to evoke your pity or anger towards Elowen, but because the truth, chronologically presented, holds the greatest power I have ever wielded. I prefer to approach matters methodically, detailing each step and explaining every decision. Let's trace our steps back to the origin. The starting point is not recent. It goes as far back as 11 years spent as a managing director at a mid-sized private equity firm. Those years were filled with structuring deals, conducting due diligence, negotiating term sheets, and handling what the industry euphemistically terms value creation, which actually refers to a demanding process that can be harsh. I excelled at it, not because of ruthlessness, but due to thoroughness. I scrutinized every document, posed questions that made junior associates uneasy because they were relevant. I grasped one fact ahead of many in my profession. Deals aren't just about money. They are about leverage, timing, and controlling terms when unforeseen events occur. I encountered Elowen at a charity auction during the spring of my third year managing my own holding company. In a bidding war for a weekend at a Vermont wellness retreat, she was falling behind to a tech executive with deep pockets. However, I intervened not due to my desire for the retreat itself, but because her spontaneous laughter in response to a friend's joke as I entered had stirred something profound within me that years of unyielding professionalism hadn't steeled me against. We were married in just 18 months. It's crucial to be truthful about those early days with Elowen, not just for appearances, but because this tale holds no coherence without that backdrop. She exuded a warmth I had forgotten could exist within the corporate realm. Her care for people was genuine, viewing them as individuals instead of assets or liabilities. She dedicated her time to 2 charitable organizations. She effortlessly remembered the names of everyone's children. She infused our dwelling with an air of belonging, as if the preceding years had been mere construction phases. I fell deeply for her. I wished to document this point. Over time, I noticed her growing restless, not unhappy initially, but restless. Prior to our marriage, she worked in wellness consulting, and as my business expanded, travel occupied a larger portion of my schedule. This left her in a luxurious home with abundant resources but limited activities that could utilize her unique energy. She began discussing the idea of opening a boutique, a genuine, upscale one offering a sanctuary where hardworking women could unwind. She named it Aura. I found the concept delightful then, and I still do today, given its merit. Elowen possessed the discernment, connections, and genuine enthusiasm to bring her vision to life. However, she lacked expertise in business setup, financial structure, and the potential complications of mixing personal brand with professional conduct. This is where I stepped in. In the autumn of the year she first suggested the idea, I consulted my attorney Alistair. For 7 years, Alistair has served as my external legal advisor. He's the type of attorney who delivers his advice deliberately, ensuring each word is distinctly understood. I shared my intention to finance Elowen's boutique via my holding company, preferring a performance-based investment over a personal gift. Upon hearing this, Alistair inquired, "Are you anticipating potential issues?" I assured him that there were none at the time. However, I also expressed, over the past decade, I've witnessed numerous deals unravel due to lack of proper documentation. I value my wife dearly. I aim to safeguard us both with comprehensive legal paperwork. Alistair comprehended my concerns, as he often does. The arrangement we established was this. My holding company would invest $1.2 million in Aura Wellness LLC for a substantial economic interest, while Elowen retained complete operational control as the managing partner. She would receive a salary, keep a portion of profits exceeding a specified limit, and have a preferential buyout opportunity at a favorable evaluation if she decides to fully acquire my company. This offer was genuinely generous, even exceedingly so. Its terms were designed to give her every potential advantage, provided the business thrived and the managing partner, Elowen, adhered to the brand standards outlined in our operating agreement. Section 8.4 was Alistair's proposal. He had observed this structure in lifestyle brand investments, particularly where a founder's personal reputation significantly impacted the company's value. Essentially, it was an anti-misconduct clause with careful and precise language. If the managing partner engages in actions harmful to the brand's reputation, such as behavior leading to potential legal issues, conflicts of interest, or breaches of ethical and professional standards, the primary investor holds the right to enforce a compulsory purchase of the managing partner's stake at a value of $1. This provision was not concealed. It was clearly stated in Section 8.4 under the title Reputational Integrity and Managing Partner Conduct. As I handed Elowen the final operational agreement, I explained the crucial clauses: salary, profit sharing, buyout option, standard creditor protections. We were dining at the restaurant where we'd first met, and the franchise agreements were scattered across the table between us. Elowen's eyes sparkled with excitement as she saw her passion coming to life. She inquired about Section 8.4. She inquired about the term reputational conduct. I explained it as a standard protective clause in lifestyle brand deals, which safeguards both parties from damaging the company's value through irresponsible personal actions. I assured her that it shielded her equally as it protected my investment. I emphasized that such a clause would only become relevant if something significant went wrong. She understood and agreed. She trusted me based on our 11 years of marriage, during which I had never given her a reason not to trust me. However, I can't ignore the complex emotions this situation stirs within me, knowing she made her decision with full awareness that it was a business partnership subject to clearly defined terms. She signed the agreement, and 4 months later, the boutique opened to great acclaim. Her space turned out exactly as she had imagined: warm and intelligent. It exuded comfort at first glance, a quality she possessed naturally. Aura's popularity soared swiftly. Within a year, there was a waiting list for certain services, and by the 18th month, a second location was under active consideration. In just 2 years, they were in preliminary discussions for a franchise deal, estimated to be worth between $8 million and $12 million by the broker. I was genuinely proud of her. My pride stemmed directly from her success. As always, I uncovered this through financial figures rather than prying or creating suspicion. I habitually scrutinize finances as others might watch the weather, comprehensively, regularly, to gauge my position in life. It wasn't spying, it was understanding my situation. This revelation occurred one Tuesday morning. I reviewed my home office's monthly expenses from Aura, a routine task I do quarterly that Elowen is aware of. During this review, I found an entry without accompanying documentation in the vendor folder, classified under security and facilities. The regular payment matched a mid-level salary, and it was paid to an LLC I wasn't familiar with. Inquiring about it that night, over dinner as I would any administrative matter, Elowen informed me she had hired a private security consultant for her personal office. She explained there had been a tricky client situation, making her feel safer having someone trusted close by when dealing with sensitive matters. She mentioned his name was Kalen, a fitness professional she knew through the wellness network of our boutique. I acknowledged her reasoning. Requests confirmed that the vendor documentation was prepared for the quarterly review, and she promised to handle it. That evening, I logged into the store's internal security system, a system I had installed and paid for, and where I held administrator rights, as stated in the original setup documents. I had never used it to monitor Elowen, simply because there was no need. Maintaining access was not a scheme devised to catch her out. It was merely a feature of my own infrastructure that I hadn't disabled. What I uncovered didn't crush me. People are often taken aback when I express it this way. I had anticipated the potential for the expense related to security being unconventional, sometimes informal or undocumented, but not necessarily disastrous. However, what I witnessed was more than casual. It was meticulously planned and in operation. Kalen was in her private office. They weren't discussing security matters. Instead, they were seated opposite each other at her desk, a desk purchased with my investment and displaying an open laptop and a visible spreadsheet on the screen between them. Their conversation revolved around timing, the franchise's impending closure, a property they had already researched in Tuscany, what they would tell others, and the movement of funds. He was on my payroll, driving a company-leased vehicle, earning a salary from an account managed by my holding company, and sitting in my wife's office within a boutique I had constructed, planning a future with her in a country we had never discussed, financed by a deal I assisted her in closing. I closed the laptop, remained still for a prolonged period in the silence of my office, then opened a fresh document and started writing. People have asked if I felt angry since then. My response is affirmative, but for me, anger doesn't manifest as a sudden storm. Understandings come as a sharp, frosty realization of the subsequent steps. I have witnessed men in business let anger dictate their choices, and it has led to their downfall. Anger hastens actions. Anger incites confrontation prematurely. Anger also grants the opposing party time to consult lawyers. Therefore, I refrained from action for 3 months. During this period, I carried out various tasks. I spoke with Alistair, who had drafted the operating agreement, and led him through my findings. I informed him that I desired a comprehensive legal opinion on Section 8.4 and its enforceability considering the specific misconduct I had recorded. I provided him with footage, payroll records, expense reports, and a timeline constructed from the boutique's financial system. Alistair scrutinized everything over a span of 2 weeks. Subsequently, he contacted me saying, "Vance, this is one of the most unambiguous cases I've encountered in my 15-year career as a business litigator. The stipulations are ironclad, the actions are recorded, and the losses are measurable. Should we move forward? I indicated I would get back to you. In those same 3 months, I aided Elowen in finalizing the franchise agreement. I'd like you to ponder this fact for a moment. I assisted her. I participated in negotiation sessions. I examined the term sheets. I proposed amendments that increased the final offer by roughly $800,000. I recruited my contact, Lucian, a transaction attorney with franchise experience, who assisted in structuring the closing conditions. I undertook these actions knowing what I knew, and I did so for one particular reason. I required the deal to be sealed before I took action. Since under Section 8.4, my investment was in the company, and the company's worth at the time I activated the buyout clause decided the actual value of the $1 purchase price. A $10 million company acquired for $1. I witnessed Elowen and Kalin the night the franchise letter of intent was signed. At an unfamiliar restaurant, monitored through business credit card tracking, they dined and ordered costly wine while sitting closely, appearing victorious in my thoughts, not mine yet. In the following week, Vesper, a diligent woman with M&A support background who later joined my office, was introduced to the plan, bound by an NDA drafted by Alistair for this purpose. Vesper managed the forensic accounting team, comprising 3 experts from a firm I had previously worked with in dispute-ridden transactions, headed by Cyprian, a senior partner proficient in such document exercises. The strategy was straightforward due to the pre-existing paperwork. Alistair would file the performance action that morning, while I'd be accompanied by a process server to the boutique. Cyprian and his group would show up in a different vehicle, carrying all necessary papers for an immediate financial audit. The company-assigned car owned by Kalin was marked for retrieval through the Fleet Administration Company. This routine administrative action, accessible to the account holder, my holding company, was carried out on the day when the Aura Wellness LLC franchise closing funds were due to be received. No delay followed. Upon reception, those funds became corporate assets, governed by the same business agreement overseeing all other operations. The moment they arrived, the total value of Aura Wellness LLC under my control reached its maximum. I dressed for that day's important business encounter without fanfare. Breakfast was consumed, and a drive to the boutique followed. At 9:47, I arrived prior to clients entering, yet after Elowen's car was parked, finding her at the reception desk reviewing material on a tablet when I entered. She smiled genuinely, a smile that mirrored the one that had captivated me years ago at a charity event. For a fleeting moment, I acknowledged the personal cost she incurred to display that smile and suppressed it. I greeted her with "Good morning," to which she responded, "I wasn't aware you were coming today." I replied, there was some business I needed to attend to personally. Subsequently, a process server entered behind me, delivering a complaint for contract-specific performance. The document spanned 43 pages, Elowen as the defendant and my corporation as the plaintiff. It meticulously outlined every aspect of the case in the methodical terminology of civil litigation. The investment contract, specifically Section 8.4, financial records such as payroll and expense reports, documented behavior, security footage, franchise timeline, legal grounds for compulsory acquisition, and the associated agreement. These were the materials I saw her scrutinize. Upon reading the initial page, her smile faded. She reread it slowly, hoping for a change in its irrevocable implication on her second glance. Her gaze met mine. In a hushed tone, I mentioned, "The crucial clause lies on page 9. You signed it." She simply uttered my name, indicating her desperation. I replied softly, "The Section 8.4 provision initiates a compulsory sale at $1. Alastair submitted the paperwork this morning. Our accounting team needs access to the back office now." She pleaded, "Vance, we can discuss this." I responded, "We can, but everything important is written there. Your lawyer will clarify the rest." Kalen was in the private office. The fleet coordinator simultaneously contacted his associate and delivered the complaint at the same instant as the process server, which orchestrated events such that Kalen stepped out from a rear hallway into the boutique's front just as Elowen finished reading the first page, encountering the vehicle recovery agent who presented him with a form and requested the keys. I observed his countenance decipher the predicament. Kalen was an attractive man, exuding appeal cultivated through his association with his own visage. However, the expression he wore in that instant was anything but appealing. It resembled the visage of someone whose entire plan hinged on a foundation and who had just sensed that foundation shift. He looked at me. I acknowledged him with a courteous, impartial nod customary among strangers in a hallway. I wished to confess something because I promised at the outset that honesty was the aim of this account. In one scenario, I'm entirely the hero, with Elowen portrayed as a villain who received her due justice, while I am the wronged party who acted flawlessly and experienced nothing but fulfillment. However, this version is less truthful. A more accurate account is that I spent 20 minutes in my car parked outside the boutique after Cyprian and his team had entered, the process server had departed, and Kalen had surrendered the vehicle. During this time, I contemplated the woman who transformed our house into a home, recalled the laughter that altered my inner structure, reminisced about 18 months of constructing a life together before the agreements, and 11 years of a marriage that, for the majority of its duration, was authentic, beneficial, and worth preserving. I'm not going to claim I felt nothing. That would be an act, and I am beyond acting now. 1. I want to clarify that my mourning process and legal actions are not at odds. My actions were justified given her deliberate, prolonged decisions that granted me the legal and ethical authority to achieve the outcome I aimed for. Simultaneously experiencing grief and righteousness is possible. Anyone familiar with litigation knows this. The optimal result isn't always easy, but I waited in the car for 20 minutes before I contacted Alastair to verify the filing was proceeding, which he confirmed it was. I thanked him and then drove to my office. The prospective franchise buyer was a regional wellness group who had been negotiating with Elowen's team for nearly 5 months. They were financially sound, experienced, and genuinely invested in the Aura brand. The closing was scheduled for the following week. While filing documents, Alastair reached out to his legal team directly. He clarified that there had been a shift in the company's managing partner hierarchy and that his holding company was invoking its rights as per the operating agreement. He presented the pertinent sections of the contract. He also provided a signed agreement from Elowen, along with a forensic accounting summary prepared by Cyprian's team. Upon reviewing the documents, Serafina, a meticulous lawyer known for handling intricate closings, contacted Alastair back within 4 hours. She informed him that her clients were willing to continue on the initial terms only if the managing partner transition was finalized with clear documentation. She mentioned this because she knew I would appreciate such precision. Despite its unusual structure, she commended the paperwork as being very well organized. I believe it's the most flattering accolade I've ever received. The purchase of Elowen's managing partner stake transpired under Section 8.4 at the agreed-upon price of $1, as indicated in the documentation signed by her via her attorney, Gareth, a competent individual who reportedly provided clear and accurate guidance on limited options. At some point during negotiations, Gareth told Alastair, "Your client created an impenetrable container." Alastair relayed this remark to me. The franchise sale was finalized 6 days later. My corporation received the complete proceeds. At the time of the sale, Aura Wellness LLC's enterprise value stood at $10,200,000. I purchased the managing partner's stake for a single dollar. Throughout my career, I've engaged in numerous transactions, faced various sophisticated parties on both sides of the table, and structured deals that took years to materialize. I've outsmarted and been outsmarted in turn, and I can distinguish between the two more clearly than most people I encounter. When I speak, I aim for precision. It's important to clarify that I didn't set Elowen up. Elowen willingly engaged in an affair with a company employee. She voluntarily conducted this affair on corporate premises. She elected to use company funds to remunerate her affair partner. She decided to orchestrate a financial exit using the profits from a business I had financed. These actions were freely taken, consistently carried out over a prolonged period, fully aware that she had agreed to a conduct clause in our business contract. The pitfall wasn't the clause, it was the decisions she made subsequent to signing it. In the ensuing weeks, many people posed a similar query. They asked, was it worth it? I believe they were inquiring about my emotional state, asking if I felt better, satisfied, or if the outcome compensated for the betrayal. The response to this question is not simply yes or no. The outcome provided clarity, a precise and unambiguous resolution to the matter at hand, eliminating any ambiguities or questions about what transpired or its meaning. In essence, it offered a definitive record that gave me a solid foundation amidst shifting circumstances. I won't claim that winning a lawsuit mends a marriage or lessens personal loss. What I can say is that the feeling of cleanliness I experienced was not one of vindication or joy, but more akin to the sense of relief following a long-awaited and much-needed conversation, or the resolution of a decision that had been delayed for too long. Every detail was recorded and resolved, maintaining both my integrity and adherence to legal protocols. I didn't raise my voice, make unsubstantiated claims, or resort to threats, manipulation, or coercion. I exercised patience, precision, and followed the terms of the agreement step by step as law dictated. This conduct reflects a professional standard I am proud of. That day, I sold my holding company's stake in the Aura brand to the franchise group, thus concluding a transaction that alone had been accumulating for 2 years. The wellness boutique she meticulously developed remained functional under new management. The brand did not falter, staff positions were maintained, and clients continued to reap the benefits of the space she created. I acknowledge this fact. Elowen constructed something tangible. Regardless of the events transpired within the private office or her decisions during the later stages of their marriage, she constructed a splendid enterprise from an idea and considerable effort. The longevity and success of the brand can be viewed as her enduring legacy, the aspect that was always distinct from the conduct stipulation, the segment that was merely about the work. I chose to preserve this part. When asked if I would act differently, people anticipate either remorse or righteousness. They hope I will express regret for not being more forgiving, or they expect me to advocate for harsher actions and quicker decisions. However, my response falls neither in these categories. If given the chance, I would have initiated a discussion sooner. Not the legal proceedings, as I'm unsure if the result could have been altered with the circumstances, but the conversation about dissatisfaction, about what transforms within a person who feels adrift. Regarding the impact on a marriage when one partner experiences rapid advancement while the other seeks stability. A discussion I would have had before anything was documented, during years when it remained a conversation rather than courtroom testimony. That's what lingers with me, not as guilt, as I won't fabricate guilt for a betrayal not my own, but as factual data. As valuable insights that someone who constructs from facts must employ, the funds are in an account, the company has been sold, the clause functioned as intended, and I am, though not completely healed, at least clearly and truthfully aware of my current status. This, you understand, is no small matter if you've been in this line of work. They say the best agreement is one where both parties leave content. I've long viewed such tales as pleasing fantasies spun by those inexperienced with binding agreements. A deal is optimal when it's equitable, its conditions clear, and its consequences enforceable. In terms of this standard, this was the finest arrangement I ever brokered. Elowen and Kaylin were chasing a future based on something they never truly owned. Not due to any deception on my part, but because the agreement was legitimate, documented, and binding. They navigated the world as if the paperwork didn't matter, treating the clauses as mere words, viewing a signed operating agreement as advice rather than a legal contract. In my realm, contracts hold the highest reality. I am Vance. Over the course of 11 years, I learned that a deal is defined by what transpires when things go awry. I financed a dream, delineated its terms, and waited with unwavering patience for the results to unfold. When it materialized, I was prepared. Readiness is constant in my nature, and the role of deciphering each document, comprehending each provision, preparing for circumstances others deem unlikely ever to occur, instills an unusual sense. When the time arrives, it does not resonate as retribution. Instead, it echoes as execution.